Welcome to the Karuna Life, the podcast where we explore the connection between spirituality and everyday life. I'm Gina Kitzmiller. I'm a professional intuitive, a Reiki Master-Teacher, and a longtime spiritual seeker. Join me as we dive into topics like living a heart-centered life, connecting with our intuition, and unleashing our own power. We'll discuss the metaphysical world, spirit guides, and finding magic in the ordinary. Get ready to embrace your inner mystic and explore the realms of the unseen. Welcome to the Karuna Life. I'm Gina Kitzmiller. And today, in light of the fact that it is Halloween, we are going to talk about modern day curses and black magic. So I'm going to explain what I call modern day curses and how they can present in real life. And we're going to talk about black magic and how that can show up, the effects of it. And of course, I want to give you tips for protecting yourself against lower vibrational energy. It's going to be a fun conversation, and let's get started. So, I wanted to start with modern day curses because I noticed a few years ago that I was seeing a pattern with clients, and this can really happen with anything. This can happen with dissolving of a business partnership or a friendship. But where I tend to see it most often is when someone is getting a divorce, because there's usually a lot of heated emotions around a separation or divorce procedure. So it tends to present very similarly with people. So I'm not divulging anyone's personal information, but let's say that I have a client and his name is Bob, and Bob is going through a divorce, and his wife, Anne, is really pretty hateful about it. She's not happy about it. And so, what can happen is, as they're in the divorce process, there's usually a very heated argument. And Anne will say to him, you will never find love again. You will never find anyone. You are going to be alone and you are horrible at finances. So, you are going to end up jobless with no money and no one with you. Right. So it's usually along those lines. And I find that there tends to be a theme. First and foremost, it usually has to do with the other person finding love or a romantic partnership and being successful and happy. And then the other area tends to be around finances and control around your own financial worth and abundance. And so, what can happen then is when that statement is uttered, if you think about it, it's those very heated, very intense emotions that are coming up. That is what I say creates a modern day curse. Now, is Anne back at her house with a black cauldron and gathering herbs and chanting? No, she's not. But I would say that the kind of method she's using really has some very similar and critical pieces to it, right? She is feeling very intense emotion. So there's a lot of emotional charge and energy. She's being very directive about her intention, right? It's directed at him, and she's stating out loud. And there is a quote that came from years ago. I can't remember the woman's name, but it's something along the lines of like, my words are my wand. And that's really true because words are very powerful. So essentially, she is stating out loud this kind of declaration, right, at him. And so that really does have, I think, all the characteristics of a curse. She doesn't have to have the cauldron and the candles and all of that. It's the energy, the emotion, and intensity that is being directed at him, and you'll actually see this in his field, in his energetic field, if it has been able to take root. And we'll talk a little bit more about how and why that happens in a minute. So, on a side note, what I often find interesting is that oftentimes the person who is issuing the curse, so to speak, is often the person who is leaving the relationship. And they may even have another relationship that they are moving into, and yet they will still feel the need to curse the person that they are leaving behind. And so, how this can show up energetically is you start to see that in the energy body, meaning most often the chakra it affects would be the solar plexus, right? Because this is our sense of self worth, our confidence, our power. It can affect the throat chakra because it is about how we express ourselves in the world. And often what happens is that Like Bob might know that he is a really great guy, but there's this little seed of self doubt that she has now planted. And that can begin to take root if it's not in check. So, as those weeds start to grow, he starts to navigate his life story around that false belief of, I'm never going to find love. I'm not worthy of love, or I'm going to botch my finances and I'm going to end up with nothing. And so that curse, I would say, has taken root and can have an effect. So, when we talk about manifesting, one of the keys to manifesting is, what do you believe, right? What do you believe in your heart? And what I find the most kind of dangerous thing around a modern day curse is they create that really nice seed of doubt. I might know that I want to move forward, but now I have that doubt that I'm not 100% about it. Maybe I think I can create this next life in this next chapter the way that I want. But gosh, I still hear that dialogue in the back of my head, that story of, I can't have that. That's not going to happen for me. And that's where it can really start to impact people. It can start to erode our self confidence, and can really have some negative impacts on the energy body. And I would say in life in general. And then what we also tend to see is the use of what I would say black magic, or what we would call psychic attack. Now, I have to be honest, I used to not really like the term psychic attack. I thought it felt very dramatic, right? But as I've seen it and experienced it personally, there really isn't a better term for it. It truly is kind of an attack. It's someone that is directing negative energy towards you. And it can really stem from a lot of different things. So when we talk about black magic, I think that black magic is used more often than what people realize, because often we think of it as very occult. And yet I think that it has kind of started to take root a little bit more in mainstream. I'm always shocked at the amount of musicians that my kids will tell me who are openly satanic or into kind of darker energy. And I think that people oftentimes use it as a means of control. The other way that I have seen it happen is a few different ways. I've seen clients that are affected by black magic because they were simply in the area of someone who was doing something kind of occult like. And they didn't know that they were going into that environment, and yet it can still have an impact on them. This is one of the reasons why, if you know me, my kids, when they were younger, I would never let them use a Ouija board and told them they could never bring one in the house, because sometimes even being in the vicinity can cause negative effects. The other way that I would say that you see this is oftentimes with psychic attack, someone who has used black magic in a past lifetime still can carry that thread. So even if they aren't going to get out their cauldron and all of those things in this life, they can still use that black magic, that energy, the directive energy that can still be directed at you, even if they aren't in the physical using a form of black magic. It's kind of the intensity and the negativity, I would say, of the energy that's getting directed towards you. So when we talk about a psychic attack, it can really affect us in many different ways. It can cause us to have extreme fatigue. It can cause physical ailments. It can cause kind of brain fog where you can't think clearly. It causes damage to the energy body because essentially it can allow in more cording in terms of energy cords. It can damage the energy body. And ultimately, I think what black magic or a psychic attack is attempting to do is to take our life force energy, which is really vital to us in this lifetime. So that's kind of where you would tend to see a psychic attack or black magic. And I don't want to fall into a good versus evil. So, the way that I believe it, and you can take what resonates or not, is that I believe that every soul is born from source energy, right? So, it's everyone is light. However, I do think that that can get kind of twisted or warped based on deep wounding. If a soul becomes very deeply wounded, I believe that light can begin to twist and to distort. Are they still light? I would say yes, at the essence of them, they came from source. But yet, as someone who's deeply wounded, that can begin to look very differently. And there's an ascended master who used a really great analogy that I liked. And what he said was, rather than saying good versus evil, because that can trigger a lot of fear in us, he used the terms white t shirts and dark t shirts. And I thought that's kind of good, right? That kind of makes it a little bit lighter. And I do think that there are white t shirts and I think there are dark ones. And deeply wounded people can kind of twist a little bit and end up putting on that dark t shirt. Will they still return to source? Yes, I think they will because they're source energy, but they're choosing to kind of play on a different team, so to speak. So I used to think with black magic, if you just stayed away from it and ignored it, that it couldn't affect you. And I think that's really a false belief. I think that black magic is used really, I think, more often than what we realize. And I think that we have to take steps to protect ourselves if we feel like there is black magic being used against us. So, Sandra Ingerman has a really interesting point. She is a world renowned shaman, and she talks about how energetically, back in ancient times before we had weapons, they would use basically energetic weapons, right? They could send poison darts or arrows, but they were doing it in the spiritual realm, not in the physical. And I think that still very much holds true today. There's a lot of negative energy that can be affecting us that we're not aware of. So, who is susceptible to black magic, psychic attack, or a modern day curse, right? Because a lot of people get divorced. There can be very heated arguments and it doesn't quite stick, right? For some people, there can be a heated argument. Someone may say something and the other person walks away just fine. Difference, I think, is really in the health of the energetic body. So, if you think of your physical body, if you're taking care of it, you're exercising, you're eating right, your immune system is going to be pretty strong. So, you might come in contact with a cold or a virus and you're going to fight it off, and it's not really a big deal. I think the same thing holds true for our energy body. So, for our energy body, if you are keeping your energy vibration high and strong, you're doing the things that you need to do, such as meditating and checking in, being around high vibrational things, you might come in contact with negative energy and it'll just repel and it's not really a big deal. I think oftentimes, though, what can happen is that if we are under stress or anxiety or we're having a difficult time in life, that can actually drop our kind of energetic immunity, so to speak. So, something that you might have been able to fight off can actually take hold and start to damage the energy body. And if that sounds kind of weird to say energy body, the other way you could word it is your aura. How strong is your aura, that shield of protective energy around you? Again, are you doing the things to keep it nice and bolstered and strong, or have you neglected that energetic side? And then your aura can become a little bit weaker and you could be more susceptible to a psychic attack or negative energy. So it's really important to take steps to keep our energy high. It's also important to protect ourselves. So if you feel that you've had a psychic attack or negative energy directed at you, or even a modern day curse, there are some tips that I would suggest that you do to help to break it. The first thing is pretty easy. You can always check in and start to use crystals. You can grid your house or your bedroom. You can carry a crystal with you as a talisman. You can wear jewelry, whatever feels right for you. I saw a shaman recently and she had suggested Numite as a stone of protection. And that's a really good stone to use. I also am a huge fan right now of bronzite because bronzite takes the negative energy and it sends it right back to the sender. You also want to make sure that you're taking steps to energetically clear your house, right? We clean our house, we vacuum, but we want to make sure we're moving the energy through the house as well. So it is important to take time to sage, to use Palo Santo, that which is holy wood. If you're able to open windows, get that energy to flow and to move through the home, helps keep the energy vibration high. You also want to take time to set protection around yourself each day. It's really important to check in with your energy body. How are you feeling energetically to kind of charge yourself up and set a protection? And you can also do that before bed. And that can look any way. It can be meditation, it can be intention or imagination. You might do something more formal. You might ask for angelic assistance. All of those things really do make a difference. And if you find that you are under psychic attack or what you feel might be a curse, then I would suggest that you check in with your spirit guides and team and ask them, like, what would be most helpful for me? Can you lead me to the right practitioner or practice to have this resolved? And then pay attention and see what comes in. Just like we don't have to see a doctor every day for things that happen, you might have a cough and you simply fight it off. It's the same thing with the energy body. So if you feel like you've been affected by a psychic attack or a modern day curse, pay attention. Is it something that you feel like you're fighting off and it's fine? Then you're going to go with that. If it feels like it's getting worse or you're starting to feel more symptoms, then that's the time that you might choose to seek out a shaman or a trusted energy practitioner to begin to kind of get to the root of that. And so when we're talking about black magic, I thought I would share kind of a funny story because our guides can work in funny in very different ways. So a while ago, I had came across something on social media about putting cinnamon outside that would help repel bugs. And I happen to live in a place where we do tend to get a lot of insects, and I'm a bit of a bug phobe if you know me. So I, of course, really took this like very seriously. I went to Costco, I got a very big thing of cinnamon, and I just lined like my whole house, all around the outside. I put like kind of a line of defense of cinnamon because I'm thinking I am going to keep all of the insects out. And so, interestingly, about a week or so later, I was having a session for myself with a trusted intuitive and energy worker. And she's like, I'm seeing like cinnamon. And I just started laughing because I had bought this huge thing. And I said, yeah, I've put cinnamon down recently all outside of my house. And I told her what I did. And she kind of just chuckled and she said, they're telling you to look up the properties, like the spiritual properties of cinnamon, which is something that I hadn't done before. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And I go home and I look, and sure enough, little did I know, but cinnamon is supposed to help repel black magic. And they suggest that you line your house with it outside to help prevent anything from trying to come into the home. And I felt, okay, I've already handled this, right? I've already got my protections up. But for a while, I would wear a little bit extra protection, put a crystal or something, carry it with me to just let me know that I was safe and protected in my energy field. So I'm checking in with my guides to see if there's anything that they would like to add. And they're saying really that, black magic, psychic attack, and modern day curses are really much more prevalent than what people realize. And their goal is not really to scare people because they know it can be a little bit scary when we talk about these things. But it is really to help be a little bit more practical, to help give you some tips and tools so that you are aware of it. And they're saying awareness is really the key. So these things are happening whether we think about them or talk about them or not. And the awareness really is power. It's allowing a light to shine on something so that we can dispel it, that we can work through it and gain a better understanding. I think people are becoming much more aware of the energy body and the effects of the energy body and how they feel emotionally, how they function mentally, and as well as their self confidence and moving forward. So it is really an important topic because it can affect you. So, if you really feel like you get stuck, my other suggestion would be to find a trusted practitioner to help you kind of move through this. It could be that you see a shaman. And when I was having a lot of difficulty with black magic and psychic attack, I did actually seek out a very gifted shaman in Colorado. Her name is Lori. And she was really helpful because she needed to go into the spirit world to get some guidance for me on that and to help to clear some of the negative energy. You may also see a trusted energy practitioner that can help go into the field to unravel the black magic, any cording that you might have with this person. You also might choose to look at the Akashic records to see is there a past lifetime with this person. And I will tell you that I'm seeing quite a bit now of theme around self power and boundaries. A lot of people are coming into this life and they're making different choices. So they're breaking kind of vows or contracts that they had made in past lives with people. And that can really have very significant effects. So if you are going through a business separation or a divorce, sometimes it can be helpful to really take a look at if there are any past life issues that are coming up around that. It would also be very helpful for you to really state your intention to break that vow or contract. And I always say across all lifetimes, right? All dimensions, because you're really going across the board. And what you do in this life does affect all of the lifetimes. It's like this ripple that goes out. And so we are seeing kind of a really strong, I would say, pushback in some of those situations because some of these patterns are very deeply ingrained. And if someone has had kind of control over you in past lives and you choose to break it in this one by going in a different direction, that can really invoke some pretty strong emotional responses. And sometimes you need to go in and to take a look at the energetics as well as the Akashic records to clear those past life vows so that you can walk forward more freely. So I'm asking my guides if there's anything else that they want to chime in on. And I'm feeling a lot of energy in my solar plexus. And solar plexus has a lot to do around boundaries and self power. So I would suggest that that might be an area that you take a look at this week. You might take a look and kind of ask yourself where you're having trouble holding a boundary or where you might be giving your power away or where there's resistance. Is there a struggle somewhere? And that can really look very different for everyone. So take a look if there's something that might be coming up there for you to explore, to look at, to transmute, and to heal. It does feel like there's a little bit of courting going on. So that might be something that you take a look at as well. You may want to choose to do a meditation or a practice to help cut the cords so that you can walk into this next chapter really feeling very free and owning your own sovereignty and freedom. So, as always, if you have questions, you can email me, Gina at the Karuna Life. And if you like this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review and following us. We would be really grateful. So, have a wonderful Halloween, and I will talk with you soon.